Welcome, everyone. We're all thrilled to be here. And I just had Van lean into me and say, ask me last. So I think what's probably top of mind for a lot of us is, in the spirit of what Van said about sharing great ideas, is how can we work together to solve some of our most pressing problems, especially around what we see around poverty alleviation. It's estimated that there are almost 1 billion poor people in the world, and of this, 700 million live in urban areas. What we're going to discuss today is how to help the migration of these people and what can we do to make lives better for everyone, ourselves included. I'd like to actually start off then with Simran. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on in China? I have to say it blows me away. I was just in Shanghai looking at the unprecedented growth there. And in the last 4 years alone, per capita GDP has doubled for people. So imagine what that would mean for your lives right now if your per capita income doubled in the next 4 years. Ever hopeful for all of y'all that happens, okay? By 2040, roughly 2/3 of China is expected to live in urban settings. Can you talk a little bit more about the manifestation of the Chinese dream? I think probably many people in this room are familiar with the American dream and the desire to have a really good life and the understanding that what that has meant for us and what we probably need to redefine is the sense that that includes the accumulation of a lot of stuff and a lot of consumption. What we understand is if China and India follow on this same path and try to actualize the same dream, that we're going to face some challenges. Can you talk a little bit about how China can manage its needs and consumption as these populations continue to grow and accrue wealth and migrate to the urban core?
Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear this. And in fact, I can tell you my personal story. I'm a professional planner in China, but I was grown up in a small city. It's not far from Shanghai. And when I was a small kid, I had a dream to be a worker. Because at that stage, that's before the open door policy adopted in China. And people were sent out to the rural countryside, and because the urbanization was thought to be not a real good thing at that stage. So I talked to my father, and can I just stay home and in that small city and to be a worker? And I was lucky to be a worker at that stage, in fact. And then I get my first degree in Nanjing University. I was majoring in the urban planning. At that stage, I thought, well, I have some kind of ambitious dream for the profession. We are going to build some kind of beautiful, livable city, great metropolitan in this world. But it tend to be more challenges for us. And particularly in a city like Shanghai and Beijing, it's of course it's an economic center for the country, but it's always confronting with problems of like air pollution, traffic congestion, and also very expensive housing price. So what can we do? And the government has been struggling very hard to have a sustainable urbanization in China. Think about the scale. We have about 46% of the population living in China now, and every year we have 15 to 20 million migrants from rural sites. People need job, need shelter, need healthcare, need education, need everything. So it's really a challenge, really a task for the professional people. And what we are doing is we try to reinforce the planning, the city planning and also the regional planning, and particularly the national economic and social planning. And we have the so-called 5-year plan system in China, and the 11th 5-year plan was ended last year. This year it was the beginning year of the 12th 5 years. So we have the target, we have a vision for the country. No, we are not going to do like, well, what's happened could be here, and we like car, we like luxury housing, but we can't afford that in China. So Chinese city well, China is a big city, is a big country, but in terms of the population, we have 1.3 billion residents within the country. So if you think about the average, many of the indicators are far below of the world average. So we have to think about what kind of life in the future we should choose and what kind of urbanization we should choose. So we set up some kind of mandatory criteria by the national government, and then all these criteria are broken down to the province and up to the every enterprises to cut down the emission of greenhouse gas and to provide affordable housing for the rural migrants and to have the equal access to the Medicare and basic education for every residents, well, whether it's in urban or in the rural side. So at different stage, we have the different dream, but I think one of the a great dream for the planner in China, we want to have some a different approach, yet we want to build more livable city, more friendly community for all our dwellers.
Thank you. Thank you. I love what you say about choosing a dream, right? And that we all have the opportunity to weigh into what that looks like. Jose, one of the things that that Shinan just talked about was sort of the need for clothing and shelter and comfortable life. Can you, as you know, you're the former mayor of Juarez, Mexico, a city that was called the most dangerous city in the Americas, and you have quite literally put yourself on the line for this work. Can you talk a little bit about also the need for security and what that means for residents and some of the innovations that you've brought into solving that problem? I mean, and what we're specifically talking about is, of course, if you can bring some of that into this, the drug cartels and the challenges. We've seen 7,000 people in the last few years killed in Juarez because of this. Explain to us why this is happening and what we can do to solve these problems.
Well, you know, Chinan was talking about the dream, and you were asking about the dream, and the dream in Mexico has to do a lot with family and opportunities. And Juarez is a city of opportunities. It's a city where 70% of adults were not born in Juarez. They came to Juarez to work, and they could find work. Out of the last 30 years, 20 years we have had full employment in Juarez. And one of the things that we didn't learn in time was that we needed urban planning, and we need to build hospitals and to build enough schools for and housing for everybody. We need economic development. We need those works to develop in the city of Juarez. But we didn't learn that one of the basic infrastructures that we need in urban planning is security. And because Mexico has to do a lot with families, most of the security issues, it's a very religious country also, have to do with people fearing God, not doing something bad because they fear God, but most of all, they fear their mothers. They don't want to do a crime because their mom is going to find out and she is going to be very upset. And Mexico is a very tight family culture. We see it even those that are working illegally in the United States. When you interview them, why did they come to the United States? They say, because I want to build a good home for my mother. And they send $20 billion a year to Mexico, to their mothers, so that they can build a better home, so that they can take care of their brothers and sisters. And so that tight-knit of family gets lost when you have migration. And when you have that big immigration into Juarez, there's no longer the family looking after what the kid is doing. And that takes them to crime. And unfortunately for us in Juarez particularly, but throughout Mexico, our system was not ready to take over what the social infrastructure did to maintain the security of the population. And I'm very glad to see all of you this morning, because The United States has a great legal system. It has a system of creating the infrastructure for social interaction that works. And you need to export that. And when you're learning about what to do under the Clinton Global Initiative, think about sending attorneys, sociologists, psychologists to the rest of the world, in particular developing countries, to teach them how the US society makes it work. But another thing you need to do is to realize that you have problems in the United States also. Many of the problems that we get in Latin America were created in the United States. Many of the problems came from the jails from the United States. You know, there's something called la Mara Salvatrucha. Mara Salvatrucha was created right here in California. And the Mara is taking over Guatemala, Honduras, Salvador. There are criminal gangs that are very strong. And there are also criminal gangs that are taking over Juarez, the Aztecas and the Mexicles, and a group called the Double A's, the Artistas Asesinos, the assassin artists. They feel that killing is a form of art. And those groups were created in U.S. jails. So it's something that you also have to take care of. It's affecting Juarez. I'd say 60 or 70% of the killings have to do with those criminal gangs. They came from the United States jails. And so you're in a unique opportunity to help to bring a system that works to the rest of the world, but also to clean up part of the system in the United States that doesn't work, so that you don't export those problems to the rest of the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Van, you know a lot about this particular challenge. Can you set the frame for those who might not know, get a sense of incarceration rates in the United States and how this has fueled your drive to push for more jobs, not jails?
Sure. Well, first of all, really inspired by the dreams we just heard about. The American dream is under fire. And I don't mean, when I say the American dream, I don't mean the American fantasy, which is, stuff will make you happy and everybody's going to be a billionaire if they just, think positive thoughts. That's the American fantasy. But, the American dream, you can make it if you try. If you're willing to work hard and play by the rules, you should be able to keep a job in our country. You should be able to keep a home. You should be able to give your kids a better life and get them off your couch and out the front door at some point. It's not happening for a lot of people now. And so we have to find a way to rebuild and defend the American dream. To your point, we have been investing in the wrong stuff for urban youth for now almost 20 years. Here in California, we spend $150,000 per year per kid who we lock up. Can you imagine that? $150,000 per year per kid locked up in the state, less than $5,000 for them when they're sitting in a classroom. And yet, when they get out, 80% of them, 90% of them wind up going to adult prison. So we're running $150,000 a year prep schools for adult prison. You could send 3 or 4 kids to Yale for the cost of sending 1 kid to jail, and we wonder why we have these problems. From my point of view, there's a slogan we have called green jobs, not jails. And we fought to have something called the Oakland Green Jobs Corps, where we reached out to some of the young folks who've been having problems. And I'm just a down-to-earth guy. I said, look, Pookie, Shanae, Run, all y'all, I'd rather have you not in front of my house causing trouble. I'd rather have you on top of my house putting up a solar panel. And I'd rather you take the handgun and put it down, pick up a caulking gun, and begin to retrofit these houses so that they waste less energy, and we can help grandmama save some money, help you earn some money, make the neighborhood better. And those are the kinds of ideas that we need to have in this country. And it wound up being adopted by Speaker Pelosi and then by President Obama as a way to fight pollution and poverty at the same time. And I want to tell you something, because your problems, and you see who's up here, are global problems. And you are going to have to deal with it from that point of view. For the first 500,000 years of human history, we didn't have 1 billion people on this whole planet. For literally 500,000 years, fewer than 1 billion people. And from starting about 150 years ago with the Industrial Revolution to the time you guys are 50, we're going to go from less than 1 billion to 10 billion in 150, 200 years. It's like this. Now the problem is you got 10 times as many people, but you didn't get 10 extra planets to figure out how all these people are going to eat and take care of their needs. The other problem you have is that for those of you who are from the United States, all 10 billion of them, this is not to flatter you, but all 10 billion of them want to be like you. Now, don't get big-headed, but it's true. They want to have a car or access to one like you've got. They want to have a refrigerator or access to one like you've got. They want an iPad, which you don't have, but one for your birthday. All those things require energy. They require a ton of resources. And if you're not careful, you're going to live in a century characterized by radical environmental destruction and radical social inequality as people fight to figure out who's going to get all the good stuff. And I think that you got to figure out a way to have what I call green growth. You don't want to be stuck in the old debates that my generation got hung up on. Who do you love more, your kids or your grandkids? Right, that was our debate. If you love your kids, then you just grow the economy willy-nilly, pollute. You're doing well by your kids now, but your grandkids won't have a planet to live on. Or, door number 2, if you love your grandkids, then don't grow the economy, don't have any jobs, block every development program, and you'll have a beautiful planet for your grandkids. You just starve your children. Now that is a stupid debate that we've been having, and it's hobbled American politics now for almost 3 decades. I think you have to be smart enough to figure out a way to have green growth where you grow the parts of the economy and create jobs in the parts of the economy that also heal the earth. The solar industry, wind industry, organic food, all of those things. Everything that is good for the earth is a job. That's your trump card. Everything that is good for the earth is a job for somebody. And if you fight for those jobs, you'll fight for a better planet.
Thank you. And that's really it, right? Everything we care about exists within this ecosystem. And whatever we do to it, we have to live with. And Anu, you have a unique perspective on this as being someone like me who's spent a lot of time in the United States and a lot of time in India. Can you talk a little bit, particularly around the work that you've done with water, the perspective that you have and the ways in which the cultural differences can really actually help inform some of the most, the greatest innovation we could have here in America?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. And I think Van and Jose and Sheena brought it up, is that there's a lot of things that we can learn from other countries. Like Jose, you were saying that there's a lot of things that developing countries can learn from the US, but I've actually seen things that we can learn from emerging economies. Like Van, you were saying we need more sustainable housing, things like that. I worked on a sustainable housing project, and if you look in places like India, community, Jose, like you were saying, is a huge part of these cultures. And we go into these slums and we kind of destroy the slum and we build these beautiful high-rises, but we see nobody living in them. And why is that? It's because the community, it's lost. And on the flip side, I actually worked on a project where we were researching, developing homes in people's backyards. So it's like micro homes, and it was one of the commitments. And the thing is that there's so much pushback because we want stuff, we want our individual, we want our American dream, and there's not as much of a sense of community, And so because of that lack of community, it's harder to grow sustainably. That's something I think we can learn, and something that I've learned. And I think what I've realized that it's really a dialogue in this global society. What we really need is to be open-minded. And I think especially as a young person, I think we are more open-minded than, because we haven't been in the box yet. We're still thinking out of the box, We haven't been introduced to the box. And it's harder to think about things. And when we're trying to kind of spread that idea, you experience a lot of pushback. Like, no, that was from, the slums in India. We can't learn things from the slums in India. No, I think we can. And I think that's what we, as our generation, needs to do, is just to be very open-minded. There's so many things that we can bring to the developing economies, but there's so many things that they can bring to us as well. And just really trying to have a cross-cultural dialogue. I think that's the only way we can really solve these global problems.
So I want to ask you a follow-up question.
Sure.
Tell us one lesson that you've learned from the slums of India that we could all take home with us today.
One lesson that I've learned is love your neighbor. I mean, honestly, it's kindergarten, but I think that's kind of a principle that they're just so friendly. I was just so shocked, like literally these people I didn't even know would just be like, no, come, have tea, stay in my house. They're living off of $2 a day and they're offering me chai, which I'm not really sure how much that costs, and I felt bad, drinking it. But the thing is that that's just the culture. It's just so warm and welcoming, and I think it's just kind of maybe it's the Hindu karma thing, I don't know, but I think that might be in Juarez, Mexico too. I don't think it's specific to India. I haven't been there, but I'm guessing that it is true, and I think it's just amazing, and that's something that I would like to bring back here, open door policy. If you need something, I'm here, borrow a cup of sugar, maybe I actually live in Oakland right now, but yeah, that's kind of what I want to bring to my neighborhoods, and maybe you live in neighborhoods where it's like that, but that's kind of not the way where I've grown up, so that's what I'd like to bring.
Yeah. That's it, right? That's terrific. And these are so super fundamental. I feel like the theme of today is do right by your mama, clean up your messes, not green for some, green for all. I mean, we know these things, and we can manifest these things. There is something good to be said for the box, I think, maybe. And I want to talk a little bit about that, too, because we can't completely abandon the box. We need to work with the box, right? And I'd like to specifically ask this question to Xinan. It's fascinating to me to see how in China, which we've had a real struggle with here in the United States, how there's this sort of mix of, the needs of society and what government has the ability to mandate very quickly. So I want to cite as one specific example, World Watch Institute talked about the banning of super thin plastic bags in China. This ban reduced plastic bag usage by 66% and saved China 1.6 million tons of petroleum. This is something the government mandated, and it happened. Now, I want you to think about, well, if we try to do that here, someone would say, you're taking away my right to have a plastic bag, right? I mean, it's happened in certain places for sure, San Francisco being one of them, but that it hasn't taken hold. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how we can work with governments, and how we can manage that relationship to really solve, some of these increasingly complex issues, such as climate change, while also supporting the rights of individuals.
Well, such issues of the global importance should be addressed by the government, also by the general public. Chinese government has to be very strong traditionally, and it has been very effective. I mean, in terms of the economic growth, people can sense that. But to think about the social issue, and we were seriously thinking about what can we do, what kind of modification, what kind of reform we are challenging. So I can tell you the story of the planning in my professional area. We had a new national legislation that's called the Urban and Rural Planning Act. It was adopted 3 years ago. And before that, we have the Urban Planning Act. And then we thought, well, probably it's the time to talk about the urban and rural at the same time. So we have that Urban and Rural Planning Act. In this national legislation, it is very clearly defined that the public have to be represented in the process of the decision making in terms of the planning for the local community. It was not happened before, but in this new law, it says that there are several principles behind that. The first of all is there should be some kind of institutional arrangement for the general public to be heard, to be expressed, by some kind of arrangement, which means general citizen can talk to the planners, can talk to your community leaders, or you can even write directly to the mayors, express your feeling, express your dream about your city. And number two, if there is some kind of institutional arrangement, it should be seriously considered by the decision maker. If such kind of proposal coming from the community, it's reasonable and it's applicable. So you can see that government want to listen to the general citizen. And I do come across with some cases in this area. There was a case in city like Beijing and Shanghai and in Guangzhou. And one of the cases in Beijing was that there was a piece of land was designated to a developer, which is supposed to be one of the powerful developer with a very strong background of public. And when the developer gets the land, they try to apply for amendment to the existing plan and try to, to increase some kind of density and, to modify some kind of criteria in terms of the public facility infrastructure. It happens all the time. And then the local municipal planning bureau, they said, well, it's good. And how about we listen to the general public? If everyone says good, we do that. So they put the proposal on their website and listen to the local residents. The majority of the local residents says, no, we don't do that. The existing plan was good as enough. We are not going to change the plan. So the proposal was rejected by the planning authorities. So this kind of case happened very often in cities, particularly in the coastal area where the economy are more developed and also more democratic society are developing in the, like city, Beijing, Guangzhou, and Shanghai, and many other cities.
I think, and what we see is that people will rise, like they will speak when given the opportunity. This is something all of you are familiar with. Van, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about grassroots activism and what you see in terms of the power of everyday people just like us to affect change.
Well, I am particularly interested in this rising generation, especially in the U.S. with global problems, but I do my work here in the U.S. This millennial generation. Who here was born between 1980 and 2000? Okay, so I'm just joking. 1968. Proud of it. Well, you are the so-called millennial generation, as they call you. You're the biggest generation of Americans we've ever had, if you're here in the U.S. You're the most diverse, ethnically, racially, culturally. You have the genius and wisdom of all people in the world in your generation. Every faith, every sexuality, every gender expression, everything in your generation. Biggest, most diverse, most ecologically savvy, most technologically connected, and also the most socially committed. You really are, if you look at the statistics, you're the kids that, the young people that JFK was calling for. You want to serve, you want to be involved. You try to give these young people a rake and say, hey, go rake the yard. You go make a community garden. You just can't help. Like slow down. So it's a tremendous blessing you are in our country because you had a huge impact in 2008 elections, and you seem to have this ability potentially to change a lot about our country. I don't think that you have yet realized your potential power. The last time we had a generation your big, it was the baby boomers. We are still living in the world they created. People who are in that age group say, I'm from the 1960s, like it's a planet. You know what I mean? Like it's where is that? But what they mean is that when they were young, they were doing stuff, is what they mean. And so I think that if you guys stand up and say, listen, you want to work You think our government has a responsibility, our private sector has a responsibility to find ways for you guys to have work that's meaningful to yourselves, but also good for the planet. I think you can make a tremendous difference. I think right now, I think we're going in the wrong direction with regard to what your needs are. And I don't think it's fair for you guys to be graduating off of a cliff into the worst job market in 2 generations. Many of you are going to have done everything right, but you're still going to, many of you wind up back on mama's couch. And yet there's all this work that needs to be done in our country. And I think if you stand up and let America know that you need work and you see a lot of work that needs to be done in this country, I think you can change politics, change the economy, and also save the earth.
And I want all of you to remember also, I don't want to throw some more cold water on this, but that your generation is the first one that's not expected to outlive its parents, right? And in part that's due to environmental factors. And so this really is about you and your survival and you taking care of yourselves and each other. And I know sometimes it seems very overwhelming. You're like, listen, I'm just one person. I mean, you guys are the creme de la creme who know you can affect change. But if you ever get disgruntled or feel discouraged by this, I want to segue into the questions that we have that we're getting in via text and from Twitter. The hashtag is CGIU. I wish I'd mentioned that earlier, but this is streaming live right now. Tweet it in, text it in if you have one. But to talk a bit about the power of what we can all do together, particularly in social media. And Anu, you have had direct experience of this with crowdsourcing around solving water problems. Can you talk about that? And then we'll move into our other questions.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I mean, we have this incredible resource, people with mobile phones. You know, it's a fact. There's more mobile phones on this planet than toothbrushes and toilets. But we should harness that. You know, it's crazy. We should harness that, you know. So what we've been doing is right now in India, water, people don't know when the water comes. It comes once a week, plus or minus, you know, a couple days. So literally, people wait around the house. So instead of building this crazy sensor network, you know, like smart grids, wireless stuff like that, what we've been doing is just crowdsourcing that information. So when water comes, you know, the valveman calls us saying, "Oh yeah, the water's here," and then we verify that information. So we send it to 2 people, asking them, you know, has the water come? If they say yes, we send it out saying, "Hey, your water's here." You know, it's very simple, and I think it's the simple technological solutions because we're the first people that can actually harness mobile phones and technology. So just very simple things we can do. I think it's easy change. It's like low-hanging fruit out there. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Well, first of all, I just think that's extraordinary, and I'm just now learning this stuff. And I have staffers that are your age, and they wanted me to tell you that we're trying to do something like this, and if you want to stay in contact, you're supposed to text to me at 69866. 69866. That's my text thingery. That if you texturize it, I'll texturize you.
He's from the 60s.
Will do.
All right. And almost all of us are on Twitter, and you can, I think that information's in your programs. You can find out a little bit more about that or find us through the search box. I want to move to these Twitter questions, and this first question is for Jose. How can we develop urban centers in ways that still meet the housing needs of the poor?
Well, that's something that's very important. I think the original American dream, what was after the war, having a home. That was it. And in places like Mexico, what we did is we taxed the income of the worker. We put a tax of 5%. With a tax of 5%, we give affordable credits for housing. And we build housing. Juarez has won the creation of most homes in any city in Mexico. It's not the largest city, but we build about 25,000 affordable homes every year for 4 years. And by affordable homes, I mean homes that you pay about $45, $50 a month for. Those are the homes that we built with that 5% tax, and they need a lot of work. And I think that's where we need to work with you. They're not environmentally very sound. Juarez is in the middle of the desert. We build with concrete, and you literally in the summer take the hose and hose your house down to cool it off a little bit because it receives so much heat from the sun in the desert, and it wastes a lot of energy. But we do have the availability to do that. One of the things we have found in Juarez, in the rest of the country, to build a home, you need a minimum of 400 square foot area to build it, and you can build 2 stories or 3 stories. In Juarez, what we've done is we've kept that area to a minimum of 1,200 square foot, and the developers, like Shinan says, they're very angry at us, and they say, no, we need smaller lots. I don't think so. We need bigger areas so that people can build bigger homes, and most Mexicans bring their mom in to live with them, which is not very good for the daughter-in-law, but it's something that's in our culture, and we need the space, we need the area, we need to make it affordable, we need to work on making it environmentally good.
So it's about putting more people into that bigger space.
Yeah, if they want to. We need to give them the space to do it. And we've been changing the laws, unfortunately. We keep a space for the school. We don't keep enough space for the park and the soccer field and everything else that we need to work so that the kids don't go into gangs and don't fall into that type of temptation. We need to work on that. But still, the system, as a system for creating affordable housing in urban areas, works very well in Mexico.
And that's one thing I'd actually like to add to that is the social aspect of it and the interdisciplinary groups. You know, as an engineer, I'm an engineer, but it's very important to think about the other things that go into it. And I think that's why we've had so many problems in the past is we're very, focused. We're very we have a tunnel vision. And I'd like to encourage you all today to, reach out to people who aren't, part of your, part of your group. And I think that's the biggest thing I've got out of this conference. I actually went a long time, for CGI, and it's just getting different opinions and, people thinking in different ways. I'm an engineer, I'm like, oh, efficiency, and then somebody else, like sociologist is like, wait a minute, what about, the family? You're forgetting about the family, and it's all important. The engineering isn't more important than the social part. I think that's what we have to understand, and to solve these global problems, these are the things we have to think about, is not placing more importance on engineering or, the social context. But I think we can find a solution if we just keep that in mind.
And the solutions are richer for all of this information. That question came in from Allie via Twitter, by the way, and I'm going to move away from the questions. We have like 6 minutes left. This is nuts. I'm so sad. I have to ask all of you this one last question. Because every single one of us has or will experience this. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from your failures, and what are some of the lowest impact solutions that you have come across? Because it really is the simplicity of some of these solutions that's what's so beautiful and what we can all walk out of here with. So talk to us about your failures and talk to us about your very lo-fi successes, please. And we'll start with Shinan.
Well, we had difficulty to choose appropriate transportation model in China. And in the urban area, we try to encourage the public transit and try to talk to the people, please don't buy a private car, and we can't afford that. We know the private car is good and it is quite cheap. And most of the people can afford that, but it's not good for the environment, it's not good for our city. But it seems we are facing serious problem in China, particularly in Beijing and in other big cities. So what can we learn from this? I would say it is important to get the communication between the policymaker, the professional people, and also the general public. And you have to build up some kind of social awareness and to encourage every people to be engaged in the sustainable development. Otherwise, you can do nothing. And professional people are very important, but they can do whatever, well, in their profession, not everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Jose?
Well, I think we in Juarez, we were so proud for so many years of having full employment. We were so proud of being a city that took the poorest of the poor of Mexico, gave them an opportunity, gave them a home, gave them an opportunity to work and to develop a family and to have economic growth. And we did the mistake of not thinking that the economic growth would solve the whole thing, or thinking that it would solve the whole thing. It doesn't. You need to be aware of the social aspects of fighting poverty. That is so important. We came to learn that 20 years too late. We now have about 80,000 youngsters, just like you. We call them ninis, because in Spanish, ni trabajan ni estudian. In English, it would be like not, not work, not study. They do nothing. And those 80,000 youngsters in Juarez are the bait of the criminals. They take them. We have 15-year-old killers with guns in the city because we didn't have a place for them to develop socially, to learn values. Their mothers had work, their fathers had works, their older sisters and brothers had work, and we thought that was enough to bring them to be a good family. It wasn't so. They grew up on the street, they grew up with bad influences, and we probably lost a big part of a generation. That is very sad. That is something that we need to learn from, and that when your efforts to finish poverty come to fruition, it's not just economic development that brings that forth. You need to be very aware of the social aspects, and I hope you do in the future.
Thank you.
So I'll be really quick, and I'll be really real here. I am such a pro at failing. Oh my God, it started in college where, not joking, I lost scholarships because I was like, oh my God, another F, oh. And it started there when I was just trying to learn how to do that. And the university setting, if you learn how to leverage your networks and how to get through it, and the friends I made at CGI, you really helped, because I'm like, okay, I just need to get through this. But if you learn how to fail, it's so much easier in the future, because it's no, I'm not kidding. If you're I've done it before, I failed, and I'm not dead, I'm still succeeding. It's fine, So learning how to do that, I think, is the biggest lesson I've learned through college, was how to fail. So.
This is what failure looks like. Van. Thank you.
Absolutely. Three things. One is I really concur, and I mean it in a very serious way. You learn more from losing. Yeah. Nobody wants to lose. Don't set out to lose. Set out to win. But often when you win, you don't know why you won. Maybe the other person just tripped and fell down, or ate too much pizza the night before. You have no idea often why you won. You just think it's because you're great. But when you lose, you really have to sit down and figure out what's going on. And every healthy plant has a whole lot of sunshine. It also has a whole lot of crap, right? Called fertilizer, okay? And everybody wants the sunshine, nobody wants the crap. But you're gonna be a very weak plant if all you get is the sunshine and you don't have any crap. So, I've had some challenges in my life. Al Gore called me after one big setback, and he said, son, you've got to make a choice. You're going to come out of this, but are you going to come out of it bitter or better? It's the only choice you've got when you fail. Do you come out of it bitter or better? And I think we have a responsibility to come out of these things better. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So make new mistakes, do good things, have a great time, and thank you all so much for attending. And let's give a round of applause to our panel one more time.
Oh, one thing. you should all do is thank your parents. So I'm thanking my parents right now because through these failures, they've helped me out. So and the
Love
Clinton
your
Global
mother.
Initiative. Yes.
Thank you.
Simran's mama is here too, so
Sitting next to my parents.
Give Simran's mama a round of applause. All right.